so much for joining me for this session. Hopefully you're staying safe and you're well and you're taking care of yourself. And if you are doing yoga, you're definitely taking care of yourself. So you should pat yourself on the back for that. This session might be a little bit more intense, a little bit more flow than a typical gentle or easy class. So just be aware of that. That's the energy I've got going on right now, is to have just a little bit more of a high energy session. But you can modify this any way that feels good to you. So make sure that you are taking care of you. So let yourself settle in on your breath, taking time to unhook from all that's going on in the world, all that's going on in your life, and you are just with your breath and your body right here, right now. You're honoring yourself in the present moment. You're coming to this place with no judgment. You're meeting yourself right where you're at. Let your breath be full and deep. If it's comfortable, have your eyes closed. If not, just have a slight gaze in front of you, not really focused on anything. And the breath gets fuller and deeper. And stay connected to that inhale and exhale, that taking and sending. That is the rhythm of the universe, and you are part of the universe. So connect to that, feeling yourself root down from within. Feel strong, supported, safe, secure. And then also feel yourself rise up from within. Take up that space. Stretch into the place around you. Feel light and free. And notice how you are both at the same time. Safe, secure, light, free, all of it. You're starting to do that 3-part yoga breath. If you haven't already, you're filling up the lower third of your lungs, middle third, upper third, release fully, upper, middle, lower. Let that 3-part yoga breath help to keep you anchored even more so in your body and the present moment. You are actively, intentionally setting aside all the stuff going on, and you are being with your breath and yourself only. You're becoming obsessed. You're connecting to your truth. You are aligning with what matters and you value, and then you are shaking off what you no longer align or attach or serves you. You're doing both in equal measure, taking in and letting go. That's the balance and the rhythm of the universe. And since you are a part of the universe, it's important that you are doing the same, taking in, letting go, taking in. Getting good at both of those things. Stay with that breath. Stay with how it feels in your body. If at any time that your legs feel uncomfortable, take a moment to rearrange so you're not getting tingly toes or feet. That's really important that you don't do that. And then you're going to find those sitting bones and press down from within. Maybe have that gentle tuck of the tail, lift of the hip flexors, press the knees away, flex the feet, and you feel that support, that anchoring in, that rooting in from within. And then on your exhale, lift yourself right up out of that place of support. Stretch yourself into that space around you that you are meant to take up. Think about lifting that heart, pulling down those blades. Once again, you see how the front body lifts and is light, and then the back body bears down and supports you. And the sensation of both, and the you being kind of right in the middle of both, is the balance of the universe all the time. Taking in what you need, letting go of what you don't. Knowing that if it serves you and your family, your friends, your community, nourishes the greater good of our planet, the universe, then you are creating good karma. Always showing up for yourself with kindness, compassion, and love, no matter what you encounter. Cultivating that benevolent witness instead of the harsh critic. Your hands can make their way to your heart. You can take a moment to set any intention you might have for our time together, whatever you're trying to cultivate or maybe let go, or something, a little bit of both. And then on your inhale, keeping those girdles engaged so you're staying rooted, and then also rising from within. Lift those arms, stretch those wings. Exhale, bring those hands down into your heart. Second time, lift, gathering up all the juju. Exhale, pulling it right down into your heart center. The more you keep that girdle activated, the girdle's activated, the more you start that stretch, you start to see how you activate those sockets, and that's where you hold yourself. The trunk is where the magic happens. And then let yourself release, breathing full and deep. And then if you're sitting up on something, maybe bring it out from underneath you and unwind those legs, dropping those knees side to side, letting the blood flow happen, especially if you do feel a little tingly. If it does feel a little bit of sleep, make sure that you are taking care of yourself as you do that. And then back into that seated position, and you can start with your feet in the diamond butterfly position, so that you're in charge of how close those legs are to you, how far away they are from you. You play around with the different sensations, and your hands can be reaching for the outside. You're not pulling for dear life. And then, I didn't have my blocks ready, but this is a great place for some blocks. And we're going to reach forward, hinging at the hips. You play around with how much sensation you want to feel reaching through those legs. Inhale and exhale. Keep bearing down and keep lifting up always at the same time. And then let yourself move to one side. I'm moving to the right. Doesn't matter which side. So I'm moving to the right. I'm keeping that left side connected. I'm still hinging. Now I've got a little bit more lateral flexion in that left side. But then I'm curving that right side and staying lifted. Inhale and exhale, and then back through center. You don't have to be all the way to your leg. You can be as lifted as feels good. Now I'm reaching to the left, keeping that right side connected. Inhale and exhale. and then back through center to then release and relax. Once again, bring those legs together. Do whatever feels good as far as doing what you need to reset. Maybe it's the windshield wiper. Maybe it's extending your legs out in front of you and doing a gentle shake. Maybe it's some combination of either of those. Inhaling and exhaling. You're always in charge of what feels good. And then lifting yourself up onto those sitting bones, having those knees bent, feet on the floor. I've just got my heels on the floor. You can have your whole foot. You're not, of course, doing anything with the toes. Arms, once again, reaching for those legs, but not pulling hard on the back of those legs or those knees, because there's, things that you want to be careful of. Lifting that heart, tucking that tail. This right here takes a lot of energy. It doesn't matter how much you work out or how toned you are, there is still energy being exerted. Now, if you're not as conditioned, you're going to really feel it. But the more you practice it, that lift and that bear down, so you're lifting both the navel and the heart up, you're bearing down with those dimples and those blades, using those feet on the floor in order to help keep you anchored, that you're helping to keep yourself right in the middle of that lift and that bear down. Only if you do not roll back on your tail, which your tail is right above your crack. But if you find yourself back like this, you might not want to lift your feet. But if you can stay lifted, and you can have your hands, your arms, you're gently pulling those legs back towards your body, keeping those shoulders out of your ears, always bringing those feet down if you need them. Take another big inhale and then exhale. Bring those feet together and let yourself completely reset with a stretch, a hinge stretch over those butterfly legs. So try to really keep that upper torso nice and long. Inhaling and exhaling, breathing full and deep. And then we're going to do that same thing. This is so good for your trunk, your torso. You never have to go as far as I take it, especially if it's too intense for you. So you make sure you honor you, because if you just hang out right here, feet on the floor, and you can see it's just my heel. I am digging my heels. I've got that hinge, and I'm pulling that tail down, lifting those hip flexors. So make sure you pay attention to that sensation, lifting that heart, pulling those blades down. And if you don't want to lift your feet, because of course if you roll back, you don't want to lift your feet. You want to stay lifted with both. And if you don't want to bring your arms out to the side, you don't have to, or up. Inhale and exhale. Stay with the breath. Take another big inhale and then exhale. Let yourself completely reset over those legs. You're doing that hinge stretch with the butterfly legs, breathing full and deep. Navel, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, navel. And then we're going to do it one more time, one more variation. Remember, you never have to come up off the floor with any of your limbs. It's always up to you. And if you do have them lifted, and then we get to the last iteration of this and you're like, I need to bring them down, then bring them down. So you are staying lifted. Your legs can lengthen as much as feels good. You can bring those hands together, and then you're gently twisting, but you're keeping your navel, and look, you can even put your legs up on blocks, and then that even pulls you up more. You're keeping your navel anchored, and you're letting your heart move. And you can always have your feet down on the floor, same thing, navel anchored, heart rotating, and then you're going to let the movement go as you come over those butterfly legs, breathing full and deep. Navel, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, navel, and then bring yourself down onto your belly. So take your time getting there. This hopefully will feel really good after doing that front work, and now we'll go to do the back work. So it's all the same stuff though. You're still pulling down with that front body, or pulling up with that front body and lifting and pulling, lifting up with that front body, pulling down with that back body. I don't know why I was getting that confused, because it's always the same. So when you get to your belly, do whatever feels good. Maybe it's a few windshield wipers. Maybe it's just laying with the hands to make pillows for one ear. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's some combination. Maybe it's a little wiggle, wiggle, wiggle on the mat, whatever feels good. And then find yourself get into that place of support. So you are lengthening down. Now your face should be looking at the mat. I just have mine up so it's not getting muffled. I'm bringing those legs back behind me, and they're very active from the glute hip flexor down to the heel ball, even though the heel ball is up in the air right now, because I want the tops of my feet are on the floor. And then I'm pulling that pelvis, tilting it into place. It's an engagement of the framework and the muscles. You are not squeezing just the bejesuses out of your glutes. You are engaging them, pulling them down along with that framework, hands down by your sides. And the only thing that's really lifted is your shoulder, collarbone, and your face. It's like you can give the mat a little kiss. Inhale and exhale. Stay with your breath. Just being in this pose is energy, and no matter how conditioned you are, it's going to, affect you different ways. Stay with your breath. It's great to practice. Stay with your breath as you let the right leg hover about an inch up off the floor, lifting the right shin, your right knee, maybe part or all of your right thigh. Keep both glutes active. That right leg has a tendency to fall out to the right. Keep pulling it into the midline of your body in order to maintain that awareness of yourself. You're reaching those arms down your side, palms up or palms down, whatever makes sense to you, keeping those shoulders engaged. Let that right leg come back down. It's still active, and it's helping you as you then let that left leg lift and stretch. These are not big movements. And remember to keep pulling into the midline of your body as you lengthen from that glute hip flexor down that leg, and then let it go, and then completely relax however feels good to you. Move those arms to where it feels good. Do whatever feels good. If the windshield wiper feels good, if just the rock and the wiggle feels good, inhale and exhale. And then back with yourself in that active pose on the mat, arms reaching down, legs active and reaching from your trunk, and then you're just trying to stretch your upper body out of your lower body as you bring the head up just a little bit, so only your collarbone and face are lifted. And then as it feels good to you, keeping the stretch where it feels good to you, you're going to lengthen up off the mat with that upper body and those arms, and then keeping those legs active. Start to pull that pelvis into place, and then feel those legs fly up off the floor. Inhale and exhale. So your pelvis, that tilt of your pelvis, is what is letting that front body from top of your face to your toes lift and stretch. Inhaling and exhaling, and then your back body is pulling together. So you're pulling into the midline in order to support that stretch, and then you're letting it go. And of course, if something did not feel good to you, like if it didn't feel good to have your legs lifted or have your arms lifted, you of course never have to do that. Inhale and exhale. All right, so we've done each leg, we've done the whole body with the arms reaching down. Now we're going to reach those arms, and hopefully you've got room. You might have to move yourself on your mat in order to accommodate this next thing where you bring your arms forward. You're looking down, you've got your shoulders engaged, you've got your hip girdle engaged, inhaling and exhaling, breathing full and deep. And then moving from the sockets, you're going to lift left leg, right arm, and then bring it down. And then the opposite. You're moving from the sockets. Stay with that breath. Inhale and exhale. These little micro moves, these are so good to help train and condition your body in order to help carry you the rest of your life. Keep pulling that tail down. Keep lifting those hip flexors up. And if it feels good to you to lift everything up off the floor and do the swimming move, so you're reaching opposite, inhale and exhale, do that. If it doesn't feel good to do the swim, then don't. And then eventually you're going to be done. You're going to rock. You're going to circle. You're going to do whatever feels good. Now keep that tail pulled down. Keep that the weight in that lower trunk. That's where all of the movement is happening, or that's where you're trying to have most of the movement. You're trying to keep that low back nice and long and stretched, so you have a lot of space there. Come into your stable table, drop into your cow, lift up into your cat. Keep tucking your tail only if this feels good. So it's like that rib cage is pulling up and you get that diaphragm hollowed out, and then you reach back into a child and you should feel this beautiful, beautiful stretch, hopefully down your low back. If you feel not a beautiful stretch, in fact, if you feel pain, then don't do what I was leading you through. Stop that. Let yourself breathe full and deep in that child's pose, reaching your arms to wherever feels good. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself by getting any drinks you need. Inhaling and exhaling. And then take your time coming up into that stable table. Move with those knees underneath those hips, hands underneath those shoulders, and engage in that stable trunk. So move through that tiny cat and cow with that lower girdle to feel that place of support. So you're pulling down with the back body, lifting up with the front body, and then you're coming to that upper girdle, keeping it engaged, pulling those blades together, pulling them apart, pulling them together, pulling them apart, and then you're staying lifted in that front body and pulling those blades down. You're not squeezing them together though, they're definitely engaged. And then your cat and cow happens in that middle back. So feel those girdles engage so those limbs can engage evenly, and then you get this marvelous stretch in the middle. Inhale and exhale, breathing full and deep. Think about trying to bring your forehead to your thighs when you're up in that cat, and think about bringing where your ponytail is or would be and your tail towards each other, but you are rotating that tail down within. Does that make sense? So you're engaging the framework, always pulling it down as you let the body move through your cat and cow. And then pause in that neutral position. Remember to rest back into a child, making as much room for yourself as feels good. Inhaling and exhaling. The next place is downward dog. It is a great big stretch. Keep those girdles engaged. Lift that lower trunk up higher than the upper trunk and settle into the stretch with as bent knees as possible in order to keep the body protected, especially those delicate joints. Find your balls. It feels great to come up and stretch on your toes, but you eventually want to be on the balls of your feet. Your toes are never really doing hardly any work. They're always just there to look pretty. Your heels may or may not come to the floor. You're just heavy in them. And you are paying attention to that upper girdle, keeping those shoulders pulled out of your ears. You're keeping those elbows nice and protected by not hyperextending them, and you are breathing full and deep, navel, ribs, chest. As you are here in this dog, it's a hinge, downward dog hinge. Inhale and exhale. And then you're going to take your time making your way to the front of your space, whether you drop to hands and knees and step up, or walk up to a forward fold hinge. And this is where you can use, of course, blocks wherever. They make a lovely addition. You're in that forward fold. You're playing around with balancing between the upper or the front and the back body. That upper body is hinged over that lower body, and the more you bring the front bodies in contact, upper and lower, and then put the weight in the back body, you're going to be able to feel that balance. Here's another place where you're looking for those balls and those heels, not necessarily the toes. And then keep awareness. Don't use the toes to grip. Put the weight in your back body from that hinge halfway, flat back on an inhale. Exhale, hinge halfway down. Keep lifting those toes. Don't let them do any work. Inhale, halfway, flat back, really put the weight in the back body. Exhale, down for the toes. Here's where you practice not using the toes, either coming up in that reverse swan dive, reaching all the way up above, or coming up in steps if you feel, lightheaded, stretching up above your head as much as feels good. And then you are coming into your mountain, putting your feet into the mat, hip distance apart on the floor, gauging the balls and the heels. You can even do a little rotation. I'm keeping everything safe as I do this. Kneecaps are pulled up, and I am rotating around the rim of my feet in order to find that place that supports me the most. I've got all my digits lifted, and now I'm going to bring them down one digit at a time. And it's kind of one digit at a time, like a couple toes come down together. But I definitely can feel them, like my foot as a whole, and then the pieces as separate, which that benefits you. So the toes, just a gentle grip on the mat. They never do any work. You're still lifting those kneecaps up into your thighs, and then here's where you're doing that pelvic tilt, dropping that back body, lifting that front body. So not only is it your body, it is, and the muscles, it's the framework within. So it's all how it is as a whole, and then how it all works separately. And you are pulling down gently and lifting up gently. So think navel dimples down, solid base, and you stay in that solid base, pressing down through those heels. Lift that heart, pull those blades down. Remember, those toes aren't doing any work, and those arms are just reaching down to your sides, and you're pressing the crown of your head in the opposite direction as your tail, inhaling and exhaling. And this is mountain. This is a power pose. You can stand even with your arms in that, like standing with your hands tucked at your hips is part of the power move, right? This is how Superman stands, so it makes sense. Keep lifting that front body. Keep bearing down with that back body. Both things are happening at the same time, and you are honoring that, using awareness, because you're practicing awareness, you're paying attention. That's what you're doing right now as you move through this yoga class in order to keep yourself safe. From the front of your space, whatever the front of your space is, you're going to stay in that mountain and then lift into whatever feels good as far as a back bend. Doesn't have to be a lot. And then exhale, you're going to swan dive into that forward fold. Make sure you are stable on both legs. Lift up halfway, flat back. Come back down to that forward fold to step back into that plank, knee down plank or table. Keep those girdles engaged. Release down to the belly. Keep that lower trunk heavy along with those legs and lift into your cobra. Maybe it's all the way up. Maybe it's still down in the baby cobra. And then you lift into your downward dog, breathing full and deep. And then make your way to the front of your space, taking time to come into that forward fold. Lift up, halfway, flat back, back down to reach up. And then come back through into that forward fold, halfway up, flat back, and then back down to step back. And the blood, keep those girdles engaged. The blood in your body is now moving from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head. It's circulating at a quicker pace. Inhale and exhale. You lift that lower trunk higher than the upper trunk, and then that blood from the lower trunk flows into the heart area. Lift up, halfway, flat back. And so all that fresh blood exchange is just making you stronger. Lifted to as much of a back bend as feels good, and then hinge. And what's happening here is that if it is hard, right, you just stay with it. Only go at it as much as feels good to you. If you want to go even slower than I'm going, stay engaged as you do it. Lifting into that downward dog or that cobra, and then going to that downward dog, being here for 2 to 3 breaths, and then making your way into your child to completely reset. And so here's where the magic happens. All that work, all that movement, we were tearing down muscle as you are keeping everything engaged, and now you are resting in order for it to knit back together. That's why it is so important to rest during workouts and in between workouts. You're always taking care of yourself. You are only going as fast as feels good to you. Inhaling and exhaling, bringing yourself into that downward dog, or of course you can just come through table. We're going to come from that 3-legged dog or that 3-legged table, lifting that right leg and bringing it up between the hands. Keep that left heel lifted and start in that crescent lunge. So you are hinging up with those crescent lunge legs. Keep that back body engaged. So this is where you definitely feel how your butt works as a whole, both the right and the left side, but how it's definitely doing 2 separate things here, right? But you're trying to pull them down and keep them together as you lift those hip flexors. So think about those being your headlights and keep them pointed towards the front of your space. And you can also think about your shoulders, trying to keep them square. Remember that right ball of your foot is doing the work, not your toes. Hands come to your heart, and you're going to twist down to that left elbow, to that right knee. And of course, if you'd rather just bring that left arm down, if you're like, no thanks, I don't want to do that prayer twist, you can just bring that left arm down, reaching that right arm up or bringing it down to your tail. And you, of course, can drop that back knee. Inhaling and exhaling, no matter what you choose, you are breathing full and deep. All right, so depending on how it feels to you, we're going to lift into that warrior 2 from this prayer twist. So that is a lift, a smear, and an open. So find that, and you might have more pieces to your process than what I just showed you, and that is totally cool. Everything is still happening with your body the same. Now you are stretching to the long edge of your space. You really got to engage that right leg from within. That right knee has a tendency to go towards the big toe. You really have to wrangle it to the pinky toe side, and this is definitely a place where your balls are doing the work, not your toes. Flip that palm and reach into that beautiful reverse triangle. Take a gander at your left leg. Is the left heel just a titch further away than your toes, and are you engaging at the ball, not the toes? You're trying to find yourself pressing through the pinky toe side. So we tend to bring everything forward. So I'm really trying to get your awareness to the back body and how you balance from there. And then keeping that awareness as you stretch, you're now going to hinge over that right leg. Keep pulling those glutes down in the back and lifting those hip flexors in the front. That helps, and you might feel a little bit more intensity. Think about trying to rotate this whole front body up to the sky, and then that left arm comes up, breathing full and deep. Keep those girdles engaged. You are keeping those girdles definitely engaged if you reach that left arm, so the bicep comes near the ear. Inhale and exhale. Keep dropping your tail, lifting those hip flexors. Imagine there's a wall behind you, and you are putting your blades and your dimples against that wall. Inhale and exhale. And then there's going to be a wall that slides in front of you, and it's going to keep your heart and your navel lifted. That is a sensation of Warrior Two. With side angle hinge. Lift yourself into that Warrior Two. Lift yourself. Now lengthening that front right leg, keeping those kneecaps protected, and then go into that beautiful, beautiful reverse triangle. Inhaling and exhaling. Stay with that awareness of your trunk, keeping the front body lifted, the back body bearing down. You're now going to hinge. That's what this is a hinge into triangle, bringing that right arm down. Same idea, dimples, blades against an imaginary wall, like you're trying to actually lean back against that imaginary wall. Inhaling and exhaling. Keep pulling the glutes down. Keep lifting the hip flexors up. Same with the top body. You're pulling those blades down and you're lifting the heart up. This is where you stay in that awareness of how you're moving somewhere between that navel and that heart, somewhere in this area. So stay in that awareness as you lift yourself up, holding yourself in that lower girdle. You're going to bring those hands on either side of your right foot. Maybe step that left leg up a little bit. Don't bop your head. So I'm going to pull that right leg back a little bit to then come up into that standing split. So that left leg comes up into the sky. You're hinging over that right leg. Inhale and exhale. No matter how conditioned you are, this still feels weird and awkward. Inhale and exhale. And then you're going to play around with coming into balancing half moon. So now your upper body is lifting up off that right leg. And then you are lifting that whole left side up. It takes a lot of awareness and a lot of energy. You're not hurting that right knee by hyperextending. Same idea. Dimples, blades against a wall, and then that heart and that belly rotating. I also like to crack my knees a lot. Inhale and exhale, and then you're very, 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 very gently coming back down into that runner stretch. So just drop those back toes gently down, stepping back into that runner's lunge to step back into that three-legged dog for a breath. Inhale and exhale, and then bring that right foot down. If you want to pull yourself forward and go through a flow, always an option. Or you're just hanging out in that downward dog, or coming to rest in that child and feeling all of the feels down your leg. And then I'm turning around so I can stay facing you. I'm going to scoot back so I don't have to, hopefully, right, it'll be easier as I go into this. So the left leg lifts, whether it be through that three-legged dog or that three-legged table. You're going to bring that left leg up between your hands or up between the blocks, finding yourself in that crescent lunge legs, and you're hinged over. Remember to engage both balls. Keep pulling down that back body together, and then on the inhale, lift up into that crescent lunge pose, and then do whatever feels good with your arms. I particularly like to feel my body and how it is. I am engaging that back leg, keeping that kneecap pulled up into that thigh. And then the hands come to the heart and we're doing that twist. Unless you know, you're like, no, I'm just going to bring that right arm down and then reach that left arm. So this is where the navel stays square, anchored, and then you rotate the heart no matter what your position of your arms are. And then going into that warrior two, a lift up, a smear down, and then a rotate of your whole front body to the long edge of your space. You are now in warrior two. Legs, they're still pulling that tail down, still lifting those hip flexors, and then lift that heart, pull those blades down, and then stretch yourself. We went into, from the midline, so then we went into that reverse warrior, breathing full and deep. Stay with your breath. And then back into regular warrior two to hinge into that side angle. And you are using whatever props feel good to you. Pull that shoulder girdle down, activate it. You're pulling the back body down, lifting the front body, and then you are stretching that right arm, keeping those sockets engaged. So really feel how those sockets engage, and then you move the arms from those sockets. Inhale and exhale. You lift yourself up, taking time. You then lift yourself up. Don't hyperextend. Flip into that reverse triangle so you get that nice long stretch. This really isn't a back bend. It is a side stretch, and then that awareness of how your girdles hold you, you then hinge into your triangle, breathing full and deep. So bring awareness to where your tail is, and then find where those blades are and try to have them in the same plane. So that means navel, heart in the same plane. Inhaling and exhaling, take your time. This is where you are staying lengthened. You're doing whatever you need to do with that back leg in order to feel support as you then lift into your standing side split. Doesn't matter how high that right leg gets. Feel yourself connect from balls and heel to glute and hip flexor, and feel that work as a unit. And then you're playing around with coming into the balancing half moon. This takes a lot of awareness, a lot of practice. So if you are falling or not quite getting it, keep practicing. I'll tell you, I did not know how to do this right off the bat. It took a lot. Inhale, and you can still see, like you're still, like even when you get up here, you're still gonna fall. Inhale and exhale. Stay with your breath. But getting that, because like that right hip started like this, and I eventually, it just takes awareness. Not necessarily even strength. It takes awareness. Strength, of course, helps. You're going to come back into that runner's lunge, gently bringing that foot down to then step back into that plank, knee down plank, deciding what feels good, whether pull up to a downward dog and breathe full and deep, or move through a flow. Inhale and exhale. Whatever you're doing, you're eventually going to find yourself resting in your child. Stay with your breath. Make sure you are taking care of yourself, getting drinks of water as you need them. So let's spend a few breaths in a heart opener. I'm going to set it up like this with blocks. You can use a bolster, pull those blades together. You can use a rolled up blanket, pull those blades together. Or you could try to bring this block between your blades. You're keeping it, and then the head rests on the other block, and you have to kind of maneuver around with this. So we're just going to be here for a few breaths, and if you'd rather not do a heart opener, of course you don't have to. But this is where all that oxygenated blood, so this is kind of intense, so make sure you are breathing deep. And if at any time, see how I'm going to bring the back of my head to that block. And then my arms, so my girdle is, that upper girdle is really engaged, that lower girdle is engaged. I'm pulling down the tail. And you don't really have to pull the blades together because it's quite a bit, that block lifting that front body up a little bit higher as your back body comes down. So it's the exact opposite of how we spend the majority of our day. So you're only stretching as much as feels good. This reaching back behind the head is a lot. Keep the girdle engaged. You feel that stretch deep, deep, deep into that trunk. This also, amazingly enough, opens up my sinuses. Stay with your breath, a few more breaths. If you do this every day, this heart opener like this assisted heart opener with the blocks, and there's like this variation, and there's the variation where you stack the blocks on top of each other. It is exactly like traction that they tell you to do in the when you go to visit the chiropractor, and they give you this foam wedge thing, and it is exactly what is happening. It is lengthening and pulling up that front body, and then it is gently pulling down that back body and getting it to be in a more supported place so it can hold you. So you should not feel this in your low back. If you do, sometimes you can lift, pull. This is where you're pulling the whole framework. The body, you're pulling it down, and then you can bring it down. And that helps to alleviate, because then you're holding yourself with that lower trunk, which you don't know how to do. Nobody knows how to do that. It took me forever to figure that out. Inhale and exhale. If you're in this position, you're going to walk yourself up or lift yourself up like that old school push up, like sit up. You're going to come to just seated and just notice how you feel. I love to feel my body move back into where it naturally is after these big stretches. It just is amazing. I can tell that the framework has shifted and lifted, and I do feel like I sit up taller with better posture, and I know I have better posture since I started doing yoga because I pay attention to it, and I have worked to keep that conditioning in that back body so it stays nice and strong, and it keeps lifting me up. And then that front body is light and buoyant, and they both work together. So if you have a few moments, come to your back. Of course, do whatever yoga poses feel really good to you that I did not call out in this session. Even if you don't think it's yoga, as long as it feels good to you, please do it. Once again, you're doing all the things I talk about where you don't you don't sacrifice joints. You never sacrifice joints. You're always careful with those joints, and you're trying to find both the balance between bearing down and lifting up from within. And then settle into relaxation. If you've got 5, 8, 10 minutes to lay and just let the session integrate into your muscle memory so you can draw on this later in life. So this will be what you can draw on when you're 90. And of course, if laying in relaxation, if laying down does not feel comfortable to you, you can sit in meditation and you reap all the same benefits. But it's sitting in meditation, it's not playing on your phone. So I really encourage you to try to do that so you can, that's where the peace and the freedom lies, is in those spaces between your thoughts and the worry and the doubt. And once you learn to blow that up, it is amazing, and you are in your happy place all the time. All right, thank you so much for joining me. Take care. Namaste. Bye.